All right, so sticking with horror for a little bit longer though, actually a lot longer though. Let's finally talk about one of the best titles ever for a documentary, in my opinion. Woodlands Dark Days Bewitched, a history of folk horror, right?
Right.
So this is the sort of the retrospect review section of this episode here. Even though this is a new film that we've now seen, but it touches on classic films like classic horror films. A few of which we've seen, others that we like. In my case, I only heard about a few but never saw, and others where I'm like, God damn, I need to get copies of this. I need to see these like as soon as.
Right.
So allow me just to do the intro, right? So I found out about this. Like I just remember like just hearing about this movie that came out during the film festival. During the film festival route of last year, right? I forgot which festivals they were, but I knew that I'm not sure if they won any awards or whatnot, but I just knew it was just making a lot of buzz, right? This 3 hour plus documentary about folk horror and all that kind of stuff, right? So and the film itself actually touches on that term, folk horror, right? And what it really means, right? So I guess for us, I mean, with horror films, right? Which we're gonna get into with Scream later on, right? We could safely see that folk horror kind of falls within the elevated horror genre, where it's not like your typical slasher film or just a monster or creature or whatnot, but there's something deeper going on. It has to deal with myth. It has to deal with some sort of like tradition or something of the past, coming alive, basically, right? And it's one of those things that is just part of horror, but you didn't really know that it was part of you didn't know it was a particular term there, right?
Right.
So I think for us, like, our introduction, so to speak, was the original 1973 The Wicker Man, right? Which still remains a classic in my opinion. I love this film. It's funny that I actually saw that after the infamous Nicolas Cage version. How to get burned? How to get burned? I don't know, right? So it's that, right? But what I love about the Wicker Man in particular, this movie touches on it as well too, is Christopher Lee, right? The late great Christopher Lee, and just his ideology. Just talking about like, yeah, this is what we believe in, and here you are, this Christian policeman, thinking that we are pagans and all that kind of stuff. But you don't understand. This is what we believe. But at the same time, and this is what I love about this movie here. It shows that he is a cult leader in a sense though, because he pretty much brainwashed the entire town to believe this thing, right? Even under the guise of this is our ways, this is our traditions and all that kind of stuff, right? So that technically was our introduction more or less to folk horror, right? But for me, no, what I thought was really interesting. I love the fact that this show here addresses that too. Is that in the 2010s, you saw this sort of resurgence in it, right? But it's within that whole elevated horror, or you want to say art house horror, if you want to call it that, right? With The Witch, right? I think this was like the first one. I was like, oh, all right.
Eggers was a talking head in this, yeah.
Yes. I was so glad to see Robert Eggers in this one, for real. Yeah, basically kind of saying, this is just based off of these writings and, this myth. Sorry, it was based off of writings and, it's the presumption that it's based on, true events that made it even creepier, right?
Right.
But, it's just all that stuff with, this family. I think they were Parisians, I think they was, right?
Yeah.
In the woods, and it's the notion that Anya Taylor-Joy's character may be a witch or someone else in the family is a witch and all that kind of stuff there. And because of the success of that film, right, and remember it's 824, right? And this was to me where I was like, oh, 824 is a company to keep my eye on, right? Then we got films like Hereditary, right, and Midsummer, right? Two of the best horror films of the past decade, right? And especially Midsummer and what that did, especially in particular, kind of introducing us to this cult, like literally putting us in this world where this cult exists, right? And they're doing all these like really messed up things, merely in broad daylight, right? And that just made things even creepier, right? But yeah, it was just the idea that films like this could be successful, and they're touching on the same stuff that that the Wicker Man, and other films like that touched on, decades ago, right? So point is, so yeah, this documentary came out. I saw the trailer for it. And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, this is right up my alley because yeah, for those who don't know, I like me some weird movies. I like me some weird horror movies in particular. Like I'm a like like David Lynch's Eraserhead or Mulholland Drive or just really
Yeah.
like out there movies that look weird and are weird, but they do something different, right? And
They're
they
talking
add
about
aspects.
something.
Exactly, yeah. So I am always drawn to films like that, right? So the moment I saw this trailer for this film, I was like, yes, I need to see this. And so said so done. It finally made it to Shudder. I was hoping that it would have come out last year. This easy would have been the best stuff for the year, right? But we had to wait a while, right? So, you just kind of run through chapter by chapter, just made little brief notes and we could just kind of share our thoughts, right? Because, yeah, this is a 3 hours and 12-minute documentary, right?
Yeah.
And, yeah, this show covers so much ground, though, because it's not just about the films, it's about the historical context behind them. It's about what they meant and, certain tropes and themes that carry over from film to film to film, right? And quite beautifully, especially in the latter half of the film, seen it in different countries, right? Because even though the film starts with British film, it goes to various countries afterwards, too. And well, I'll just say quickly before we jump into the chapters quickly, right? For me, I just couldn't help but look at this and be like, with us being from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, this is to me this is the style of films that we should strive to make, right? And because of the success of A24 horror films, I think that this is like the perfect fit for us, right? Because I mean, when we were young, we heard about the Sukuya and the Larger Bless and Duends and stuff like that. We heard those stories, even if we didn't hear it from relatives and whatnot. We read them in books, right? We read little we call those little Republic readers, or whatever you call it. We always have a story about that, right? And always in my mind, I was just always kind of wondering, and even like Papa Vortex said, right? There was always to me like, okay, like why couldn't we, adapt us, make a story like that? But I for me, my excuse is, I think the real excuse is,
I'm always saying that, I mean, we see Trinidadian horror on the whole. I mean, we have so much to choose from, and I would really love to see more people do more, because we had Tennille Newell who did that beautiful little short movie,
Mangroves, right?
Mangroves, yeah. And I'm like, yes, I want more of this. So
yeah,
hopefully.
But for me, I think the issue is that when it comes to horror, y'all could button and tell me if I'm wrong or not, right? I think that we just always like to see things from a modern lens. Like, okay, it must be set in modern times. It must be somebody who decide to go in the forest. Sorry, to go in the bush, and they happen to run into some creature, and that's it, right? Like, we always try to look at things like, okay, if it's horror, it must be modern, right? But I always felt like at times we should kind of mix a little period piece, right? I think that's where we could get away really with the
problem with period pieces is that
the do it stuff,
Yeah, there's a little problem with period pieces. They are expensive. So
I know.
Yeah, that was the budget.
Yeah. Or at least try to figure out a way to make at least a logical reason why these creatures exist outside of, I'm in the bush and here's a creature, right? Like add a little bit more depth and meaning to the story instead of I'm just encountering this monster just because, right? And similar to like the films that that are touched on in this movie, right? That there is some sort of like deeper historical or cultural meaning to it. It's not just, it's a Sukiya because it's a Sukiya, right?
Well, this is where they go. Sorry, but this is where we cross the line from folklore into folk horror. It's that to me, it's a little bit different, because the folk horror, it tends to be more of that whole isolated people who have specific beliefs, whereas folklore, we tend to think monster or supernatural creature. So it may have been born of that, but
the documentary goes both with that, right? So, I really like this documentary because of how just shockingly, like, how anthropological it was. Just a ton of great research and history stuff. And what I appreciated about it was the whole, they just get into like the anxieties of the zeitgeist, like of every show. It does a lot of things. It references stuff outside material. Like they have a documentary, one of my favorite documentaries ever, Maju. right? Not a horror, a documentary. And the whole thing is about, well, the whole exposing evangelical Christianity in the 70s. That's the whole documentary. But it does, it gets into the explanation of, well, how, if this stuff's so fake or whatever it is, well, how come it's so popular? And they explain that. Like, and I really appreciated how generally, well, just well in depth with that. You know, it's a good companion piece to this show, the documentary Horror Noir.
Right? I knew you were
right.
going to say that. That is one that I believe is still on Shut Up though, but I need to watch that. Yeah, I need to watch it.
Right.
That is about, by the way, African American horror films.
Right.
Or I should say directors who made black horror films, basically. Right.
Right. And this got into a little section with that of just the general, like, again, anxieties now, playing on anxieties.
Yeah.
Why have isolated communities? They play with that. They talk about why are there so many horror movies that play with the anxiety of Indian burial ground. Why do have so many Indian burial grounds in the horror movies?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes. I love how they touch on that too.
Yeah, how they tapped into that. And I love, as you bring that up, that it did start in England, where they say basically this sort of horror started, but I do love that it went international. I appreciate it.
Yeah, they went all over, right. Yeah, exactly. And but what they did brilliantly, I felt is what they did brilliantly, I felt is just the aspect of, so he had a great line, the guy had a great line. The reason why there are so many Indian burial grounds is because, well, the whole of the United States is an Indian burial ground.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. I love that. Might drop that moment,
Right. So they get into that political dimension, to it, social dimension, history. There's a nice point with again with people of the past in clash with the people of the present. The idea of England is one of the first countries to industrialize, or if not the first, right? And that's a whole thing. There are a whole bunch of livelihoods destroyed because of that. A whole bunch of, and, the past kind of haunting the present because of that. And I like what they do with that. It just, and it covers a lot. And what I like about it, it covers so much in that 3 hours. But like, the kind of stuff they're talking about, this could have easily been a 9-hour documentary, and I would have sat down and watched the whole thing as well.
Yeah. This is absolutely worth watching, though. And what I would say, like, I was gonna wait till the end, but what I would say though, this is like the perfect film to show during obviously during film classes, right? Because Ricardo and I, with us, being in film school, technically, right? There were instances where we had to sit through a long film and then afterwards have a Q&A with our lecturer, right? So this is one of those shows. You just have this running, and then afterwards you're being asked a whole bunch of questions. You had to be writing down notes, so you had to know how to answer, right? But this is directed by Kier-La, who actually shows up, numerous times in the show as an interviewee. She does a little bit of narration here or there. And it's released from Severin Films. This is, a home media distributor as well too. They mostly deal with cult classics as well too, right? Similar to like a Vinegar Syndrome, right? And yes, they actually have this film out on Blu-ray right now. And they have a box set which is called All the Hornsby Hours, a compendium of folk horror, right? Which, by the way, the title of it, All the Hornsby Hours, is actually one of the chapter titles in this movie here, right? But the movies that they have in this box set is insane, though, and nearly all of it, I think all of it actually shows up in this movie as well, too, in some way, shape, or form, right? Because we're touching on films from, England and Italy and Iceland and Finland, right? Yeah. They just cover so much different countries in this box set, though. It is insane. I need this in my life, right? But it's a bunch of films. It's a bunch of films that are like, I remember seeing this years ago. So like they got into like Ganja and Hess, for example. Like, right. Yes, which I still need to watch. I saw this years ago. I was like, all right, but then I thought a bunch of stuff from England I never saw. A bunch of books I never saw. Never read. Sorry, they're getting to the history of again tapping into anxiety stuff and making it work. But I didn't expect this to be as deep and as it was. Right, agreed. Well, what I would say though, just a couple things, right? So I, in preparation for this, though, I actually watched a few of the films being mentioned here. Some I saw years ago, others I saw for the first time, right? So, two in particular, that would be Witchhammer. This is a film from Czechoslovakia, of all people, right? Of all places, right? And it actually touches on one of the 3 films that are addressed in the first chapter of the movie. That would be Witchfinder General, right? Which it's a show I'd recommend seeing though. If you're squeamish though, yeah, you should kind of tread lightly when watching this though, because yeah, this show touches on witch trials
With
basically,
trials,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and just these brutish men, again, goddamn patriarchy, right? Just going after women and accusing them of witchcraft and torturing them and burning them at the stake, right? And it's rough to watch, right? Especially in that Witchfinder general movie, even though it's our boy Vincent Price, right? But yeah, he was just such an asshole in that movie, though. But but really the horror more comes in the violence now, and that's
And
that's
I
the
think in
interesting
the
part
truth
about it.
behind the story, it's so freaky to think that person actually existed, and
You know.
the
Yes,
movie
yes.
the movie's probably a lot more gentle than he ever was in real life. So
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah, yeah. But what Witchhammer though, which came out a couple of years afterwards though, that went in a more political route though, because it just kind of because kind of just read after the fact though, it was dealing with some communism stuff that was going on then, so
Right.
you could just feel the anger though that the director was just putting into that film though, because yeah, it was just basically all the high ups just being just scum, just being bastards and looking for any and every reason just to do these witch trials and just torture poor women just because, right? But it's still a great film, though, and it's actually part of that box set, right? But yeah, chapter one actually touches on the three films that pretty much started this whole folk horror craze, so to speak. So we have Witchfinder General, there's The Blood on Satan's Claw from 1971. The opening shot of this film here is this young woman dressed in white. In the film itself, she's actually part of this cult and killing people and all that kind of stuff. This is like what I find so interesting about this movie here though is that like in marketing the film itself, this movie here, they use that particular shot of her walking towards the camera, in it, right? It's kind of weird though, like you're using a still from someone else's film to promote your film. That's really interesting, right? And of course, the last film would be 1973's The Wicker Man, right? Which, I mean, it still holds up. I still think it's a bona fide classic, though. Just the ending, what I mean, with the guy in The Wicker Man and, everyone singing, right?
that
And there's him like, me screaming. It's just chilling. Yeah.
No, I was just saying that ending is still so chilling. I mean, no matter, you let it sit, no matter time pass, you watch something again, it's like, wow, yeah, that's still impactful. That's still, I feel that way every time I see Psycho. It's like, yeah, this still works for me.
It does. But, it's so timeless that even the infamous remake couldn't even tarnish the Wicker Man, because like when you think about it, the Nicolas Cage version could have like easily like tarnished the name of the Wicker Man, but no, because of how potent that story was, though, it was like, yeah, I mean, not even out of my eyes, the bees, not the bees.
I think
like,
if you
that
treat,
can do anything.
I think it's a good idea to treat that remake the way I treat Scary Movie and Scream.
Oh yeah, it's a parody.
I view it as a complete parody. I never take it seriously, so it could never tarnish the original.
Yeah, you should, right? So chapter 2 now actually touches on specific aspects of British folk horror, right? And this is how like I didn't even know about. Well, of course, still after watching this, right? It's usually centered on the land, earth, and what traditions were buried underneath it, and there's always some desire for it to for someone I should say, to return to those traditions. Like they always feel like we need to go back to this because society is becoming too modernized. We need to go back to the old ways, right?
They convince themselves it was a purer time and a more innocent time, which it never was,
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, they play with it. They illustrate the conceit very well, like how it's both kind of conservative and a liberal thing. At the same time, it goes both ways in many ways, right? Sometimes it's a conservative thing of it's up too many blah blah blah, too many this. And we need to go back to the simpler time. And then the other end is like, no, it have too many control of industrialize this, and we have to go back to be more free or whatever it is, right? And they illustrate that with all of the culture, and it gets into a lot of depth with that too.
Yes, it did.
It really does, yeah.
Yeah, but what this show really, really does well, though, is all these like just source material, just all these clips that they use, though, because they are just pulling from old TV shows, old movies, stuff that from VHS tapes, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you just portray it here though, and you're just like really, really deep cuts now. Case in point, so I'm not the biggest Doctor Who fan. I mean, I do
Yeah.
appreciate the revival series, right? But I've always wanted to watch the older series, right? So, but you know, it's just millions of episodes, right? Literally, right? But I was surprised that there was actually like a story arc from the 70s called The Demons, right? Which
Mhm.
incorporates like elements of folk horror in it, right? There's something being unearthed, there's some demons being resurrected, there's some people who like trying to keep things hush hush. I was like, okay, wow, like they actually
Yeah.
do that in
I mean,
that
think
Doctor
about
Who
it.
thing, you know?
It really makes sense too, because the early Doctor Who is kind of like the freakiest, in my opinion. I remember those early Doctor Who episodes. Some of them were like deeply unsettling and scary, you know.
Right.
So as a
Yes, stuff
kid,
here.
you see them, it freaks you out, you know. And with folk horror being what it was back then, it makes sense that they would want to tap into that.
Exactly. And speaking of being unsettling, boy, what is up with like these creepy ass like children shows though? Like, could they have like a montage of like some clips and whatnot though from the 70s or whatnot? I just watching this and like, wait, this show is for kids? Like this should look creepy as hell, dude. I mean, but yeah. Also in this section, just to round things up, they also touch on a few ET's horror movies, like The Company of Wolves from Neil Jordan. I've actually seen that years ago. I actually forgot how it went. A movie that I've always been meaning to see, The Lair of the White Worm from Ken Russell, and a show that I know
Me
is a
too,
classic
yeah.
amongst horror fans, Rawhide Rex. I was like, what? Okay, still a movie that I
Yes.
haven't seen, So, chapter 3 now we're going a little bit deeper now. So now they touch on paganism and witchcraft, right?
Right.
And, points for, the interviewees that they got, though. They got a lot of women, of course, because, yeah, I mean, we touched on, well, this, not just in England, but just worldwide, though, this fascination with witches, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Specifically the idea of feminine power, right? Just the idea
Right.
that, we could be
Feminine
leaders and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You
Um,
definitely. Yeah. Sorry.
no,
I'll just
go
say
on.
they definitely. I do love that they touched on that on an international scale, because you had of course the Puritans leaving England and bringing that those type of not progressive but just really recessive type of, oh, this is how it's supposed to be, and if you're a woman, these are the rules that you follow. And you could see how just that anything a man could not understand about a woman, it obviously she's some type of witch, and that is worldwide. That is
Exactly.
not
Right.
yeah.
And this, I believe, this is where they make reference to Witchhammer, right? Which I mentioned earlier about, just those unlawful witch trials, basically, right? But yeah. This section really, I mean, the whole film got to me, right? But yeah, this one, I really love the fact that they actually touch on that, right? But I think is this one interview, I think she ends it off, just the idea of, just female power, right? And just the whole fear behind it, right? I thought that was really interesting, right? So chapter 4 now we get to American folk horror, right? And they do connect it to the Persians, right? When they arrive to the United States, of course, Native Americans as well, right? And as I said before, Ricardo, I love the interview. I forgot his name, who says
Yeah.
there's no such thing as an Indian burial ground. I was like, what?
No, he said the whole of the United States is a Indian burial ground.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
he says
I
it
did love
afterwards.
to
He says it
tap
afterwards.
into-
Right,
He
right,
said
yeah.
something along the lines of
Right.
maybe
Okay.
the good thing about these movies is that, and apparently Stephen King has kind of had a hand in this whole thing blowing up the way it is,
Yes.
and everything is a Indian burial ground. But
Right.
he talks about how if these movies can make people a bit more fearful and a bit more respectful, then maybe they should exist. Maybe people should be afraid. And I did like that. I did like seeing that aspect of it and thinking of it in that way.
Yes, indeed. And of course, they bring up The Shining. They show little clips of that.
Right.
The Amityville Horror, which is a show
Right.
I haven't seen in ages. Pet Cemetery, still haven't seen it. I know, I suck, but still haven't seen that. Still haven't seen the remake, right? But yeah, is the trope of the Indian burial ground basically kind of touches on the idea of colonization, or to extent, yeah, not just not wanting someone invading your home, right? Whether it's some entity or some force, right? They explore American cults, and they also bring up in the process Midsummer.
Right.
And I like how they kind of frame it where, it's about this older religion kind of allowing a means or method to properly, of grieving now, because
Right,
remember, Florence Pugh's character was kind of going through,
Right.
loss of it
Yeah.
because her parents died now, right?
Even
But
more
they played on that aspect very well of
Yeah.
the reason why all these things just pop up, and well, you could argue in the modern world conspiracy theories or whatever it is just a straight up failure of mainstream culture and our general society in addressing certain issues. So you could totally understand why people just have a collective meltdown in certain regions. They're not crazy or anything like that. It's trauma that is unresolved. That's it.
Right.
Sorry.
Another one, another American one that I think it's American. Remember Apostle?
Vaguely. Just remember what it's about.
Apostle is about this guy who goes on this island where these people live to find his sister. And he's struggling with drug addiction, I believe it was. I'm trying to remember the actor who played him. He's the same guy who played Legend in the Marvel television series Legend.
Okay.
Same actor.
Oh, that dude. I forgot his name though. Yeah.
General Legion.
Legion. Sorry,
Legion,
I'm saying
right,
Legend.
yeah.
Sorry, Legion. Yes.
Yeah.
And
right.
and that one is very much cult horror, like full on cult horror. I thought it was really well done.
Right. Other movies that they mentioned, classic for the 80s, Trade of the Quarter, right? Which was, a cult that was rooted in Christianity, right? But they, actually to extent is Mormonism, right? But yeah. Even bring up a show again. Sorry, Summer, but just never got around to watching it. Pumpkinhead, right?
That's a classic. At least the first.
I know.
The first one, and maybe the second one as well. I have a fondness for the first two movies.
Right.
Funny enough, I never thought of it in this fashion, and that's one of the things I loved about this documentary, is that there's some movies here that I never, until I started watching this, I'm sitting in the background, I'm like, oh my god, the serpent and the rainbow, oh my god, I'm tapping into, I never thought of that movie in that way,
Yeah. Same here too. Even bring up Southern Gothic or Southern based horror, right? So they mentioned films like Deliverance from 1972, 2000 Maniacs, right, which was a show that I saw a while back. Not the biggest fan of it though. I know the director was very, very much into, because this is like early 60s. I know he was very much into like schlocky, gross out horror film. Like this is early gross out horror, right?
Yeah.
And of course, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? Still one of the most disturbing horror films I've seen, especially that third act though. Jesus, right? Even bring up films that Hollywood films that confuse voodoo with hoodoo, right? I actually love this moment where they brought up that, right? And essentially what they just say is, voodoo's a religion, brought to Haiti from Africa, and is the belief in God and heaven and all that. But hoodoo is magic that has nothing to do with God. Is divorced from religion, right? And I was surprised that even they made reference to two films that I didn't think would be in this. The Skeleton Key, remember that? Like, I thought about that movie. Like, geez, like, oh. And Eve's Bayou, like, what? Eve's Bayou? Okay,
actually, I was thinking of Eve's Bayou. Like, I was making a list in my head of all those type of folk horror. I even tapped into my mind as like Suspiria, maybe even Wrong Turn a little bit, with that whole family that never came out of the woods, and they, form their own type of belief, which, eating people. But they definitely looking at it and seeing all these films, like, as you say there, that they would mention and be like, oh my God, yes, Eve's Bayou, definitely that type of horror fits in there, even if you don't think of it as horror.
Yeah. And he also mentioned three films that I believe this is what he mentioned here, just paraphrasing here, that kind of showed voodoo in this problematic kind of fashion. That would be, as I say, The Serpent and the Rainbow from Wes Craven, The Believers, which is a show that I honestly haven't seen in ages though, and Angel Heart, right, which is from the late great Alan Parker, right? Even bring up Candyman as well too. It's like, I like that, because when you think about it, it is folk horror, but it's with the guise of urban legend.
That James Bond villain, that was played by this Trinidadian actor.
Oh, Jeffrey Holder. They showed a clip of it. They showed a clip of it. Yeah. But yeah, you're right though. Even Live and Let Die kind of show voodoo in this kind of evil kind of way, right? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I really appreciated how they brought up Candyman as well. In particular, what's her face, Virginia Madsen's character, right? You know this, this foreigner basically, or sorry, someone who kind of kind of nosing
Yeah.
about trying to figure out what's going on, kind of diving into this world that she knows nothing about now, and it kind of
Mm-hmm.
opens up this nightmarish kind of reality, right? So I really dug that.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 5, this would be the All the Haunts Be Ours section, right? And this is, for me, my favorite section in the entire movie, because this touches on folk horror from around the world, boy. And I was just like watching this, saying like, yeah, this is what we should be doing right here in Trinidad and the Caribbean, right? But is the countries that they cover, but I was just like, what? Because yes, they start off with Australian folk horror, right? They mentioned Lake Mungo, which is I've always
Yes.
heard of that show. I've never seen it. Wolf Creek, always heard of it, but I never see it. I know I suck.
Both are hard to watch. For
I
different
know, so have heard.
but
Picnic and Hanging Rock, however, I've seen that, and I
mm,
highly recommend that show, right? But yeah, especially with Australian folk horror, they just really touch on indigenous tradition, and well, the white colonials' response to that, right? Which is usually, I don't understand what's going on. This is creeping me out. I should react it, violently, right? In a sense, right? But is those films? I didn't make any. I didn't write down the titles. They were making mention of this particular. Right, I think it was like the 200th anniversary of the colonization of of Australia. Sorry,
Australia, yeah.
yeah, and there were
Yeah.
two films that actually touch on that though, like quite blatantly. I was just like, wow, okay, like we just addressing this head on though in this sort of surreal. Okay, yeah, there's a lot of surrealism used in these films now. Yeah, in this surreal fashion though, right? Of course, they bring up films from Japan. All three of which I've seen. Well, the three that I'm gonna mention, the Party Criterion Collection. That's how I know about them. Onibaba,
Right.
Kwaidan, and Koroneko. All three of them are
What's the
fantastic.
name? What's the name of that old Indonesian? I want to say Indonesian horror film with the
Oh,
uh,
well, good thing of
mention
Mystics in Bali.
Miss
No,
Six and Bally, right?
right. Here's the thing though,
That
because
doesn't come up.
I believe, yeah, in an earlier episode I made a joke. I hope they make mention of that, right? By the way, some if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube right now. It's called
Okay.
Mystics in Bali. It is one of the most batshit crazy horror films you'll see. It is so batshit crazy to the
Crazier
point
than
it's
the house.
hilarious.
Crazier than the house.
Oh, House, you know,
Oh, sorry.
all right. I am a fan of House, right? That's 1977, right? Not the Netflix show The House, right?
So,
Which, by the way,
I'm not
you
the
should watch,
80s
right?
horror house, right?
It's a 70s. It's from 1977,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it
I
is
remember
one
you
of the
recommended it.
weirdest horror movies ever. Though
It is.
it's almost the point that you're watching this, and it's more of a comedy, or like a Scooby Doo cartoon than anything else. Though, but
Yeah.
it's so weird though. But it has a charm to it that is so irresistible. The point is, I recommend it to someone that she watch it. I don't forget like her review of it. Like, okay, what did I just watch? But yeah, Ricardo, if you're just looking for like some weird psychedelic shit to just watch and watch that movie. What I was surprised that it didn't
It's
come
like
up.
the entire thing is like a bad acid trip.
It is, but a good
But
bad
a good,
acid.
a good bad acid trip. If
Yeah, that's the
there's
best way to sum it up though. But yeah, back to Mystics in Bali though. So periodically they will have like these animated montages, right? And you'll just hear like this kind of weird folk song playing. But like you will see like these images, like just these sort of witchcraft beast images kind of show up and show up during the montages though. So during that
Right.
section in chapter 5, you saw actually like one of the iconic shots from Mystics in Bali, and that would be this woman's head. Well, I forgot the name of the creature now, but like it's basically her head and the spine, and it's flying about, like literally flying about. It's
Okay.
weird. The visual effects
Yeah.
look dumb as hell, but when you see it, it's like the weirdest thing ever. I tell you, it's weird but funny at the same time, right? But I saw that, I was like, ah, yes, they make mention of it. I like that. I like that, right? But yeah, as far as countries go, they went to Mexico, they went to Brazil, Dread.
Yeah.
And I like
Yeah.
with Brazil they were touching on I forget what it was, but it was a certain type of voodoo, but it was essentially voodoo, but it was a certain, like I think it was
Yeah. Like
style of it or whatever it is, yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
Mujumbo, it's a strange term like that.
Yes, something like that. Yeah.
They get into like a lot of Santeria stuff. You know.
Mhm.
Right, Santeria, especially with the Mexico stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Santeria. We call it oh gosh, brujeria.
Bruja.
Bruja. Right.
Yeah,
Bruja,
Brujeria. Right. Brujeria. Yeah.
Yeah. They of course they went back to Europe. They went to Poland. They went to Germany. Even touch on occultism within the Nazi regime. I was like, okay.
Right. Yeah. That was a whole thing. Yeah.
They bring up legends of werewolves, right?
Right.
And there's one film though. I'm not sure what it was, but is the one where this woman turns into this beast and literally jumps on top of this guy, right? And he's riding him.
Okay.
I remember seeing that, and that's slow to me, Jen. I was just like, wow. I forgot what the legend was though. But essentially it's this beast, this demon that rides this guy till he dies there. And there's like they say there's something sort of erotic and dark about that whole thing. But just how you saw it visually, it was just like, wow, right? And they hit me for 6 with this one, right?
Is it like that Taiwanese horror movie Shutter? Yeah.
Yeah.
They ride on your shoulders. Yes.
Right, yeah. But the one that really caught me by surprise though is this Finnish movie from 1952 called The White Reindeer. It is about a woman who turns into a vampiric white reindeer. I want to see that movie. I want to see that. I want to see how logically that plays out. Because it is based off of myth as well too. But I just want to see that concept play out. That is so weird though. Like imagine that a reindeer, not a demonic reindeer, right? But whatever.
Yeah.
And now we reach the final chapter. This would be the folk horror revival, right? Of course, this is where we see, films, folk horror films in the 21st century, like, The Witch, Hereditary, Midsummer, the Pet Sematary remake from 2019. They even bring up The Village, though, from M. Night Shyamalan.
I think they showed the ritual as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought they made reference of some Jewish folklore that I thought they would have touched upon. So, like, one of my favorites is Cohen, right? A Serious Man.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Right.
I need to rewatch that movie, though. The first time I absolutely didn't understand it.
It's not a horror movie, but it's clearly based on this whole curse of Jewish people kind of concept, right? That undertone to a lot of anti-Semitism, to be honest, right? They made reference to that, which I thought I was surprised that it had more Jewish horror stuff now in that sense. But there
was.
The book.
Yeah, there was one film. I think there was one film in particular. I think it was in Poland. It was involving some guy and a wedding, but then they realized like everybody in the reception were dead. They were all like Holocaust victims or something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
that I want to see.
Haunted. Yeah,
exactly. But for me though, this final section really had like throughout this show, right? You really got like this really dark and surreal visuals, right? But this one was where like you really got the most frightening imagery, right? I think the reason being is because what they're trying to show here is like, why revive folk horror in the first place, right? And it's this cynical, but I kind of honestly believe it's true notion that, things aren't gonna shape up for the best, right? Things are gonna just get worse and worse and worse, right? Sorry, that's just how it is, right? I love how they started with 9/11, right? But no, they actually touch on some stuff that took place in England in the 70s, right? Especially one with involving the Prime Minister then, and then they mirror that now with what went on in the beginning of the 2020s, with Donald Trump and all that kind of stuff, right? Before that, they show 9/11 and all that kind of stuff. Now it's just this idea that things aren't gonna get better, right?
Yeah,
but it's just how they show and just the choice of imagery that they show in this section here, what the movies themselves. Yeah, this was like the most frightening of everything that we've seen thus far, in my opinion.
I think it taps into that, and this is where the folk horror taps into that whole you're doomed to repeat history if you don't learn from it, and
because
you do see that element playing out over and over again, and it's always represented in horror, especially the elevated horror, if you want to call it that, of now. So I think that's what they were showing. It's always going to be relevant in some way.
Yeah. And you can even look back at older films like, say, Witchhammer or Witchfinder General, or even Wicker Man, and see parallels to what's going on today, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was really well done.
It does, because like with horror in general, is the whole catering to, well, effectively folk psychology and archetypes, and you could probably pull some Freud or Jung from somewhere, in all of that. And just get into the general zeitgeist anxieties. That's why this does so well as a documentary. As I said, I really hope there's an extended cut out there somewhere where there are so many extra stuff.
Right.
Well, I'll give that on my reason soon. So.
All right. So we just wrap it up here, right? So also one great thing that they touch on, is the advancement, in our society, especially with technology, right?
Yeah.
And just the notion that eventually you're just gonna get tired of it. It's just weighing you down. So it's like, all right, like now, for some people there's going to be a need to go back to old traditions, like let's go back to the old ways, right? So that's where you have films like, see, Midsummer, where you kind of touch on that a little bit, right? So at the end of the day, there will be a future for this subgenre of horror, though. But what, one thing I really love about this show here is just how it just kind of shows, like, I would say, to the untrained eye, right, that the reason why movies like The Shining, right, like Pumpkinhead or Midsummer, I would say the older films, right, like Wicker Man, why they remain classics is because of just the truth that they reveal now. You know what I mean? The truth about our culture, our society, right, and how it even though we're in regardless of where we're from, it's very much true. It very much resonates all around the world, right, and all that kind of stuff, right? And it's more than, oh, somebody got killed and that's why we love it, because it have some scariness in it. Is the deeper stuff that's going on that makes it timely, in my opinion, right? If I have one teeny tiny gripe though, and this is just a warning for people going in, they kind of spoil movies. Not all the time, but there's certain movies that they do spoil, right?
Well,
so if you're one of the few who don't know how the Wicker Man ends, you'll be like, oh gosh, I need to see that, right? For me, where I didn't want it spoiled, but at the same time I let it slide. But I have to put the blame on myself, guys. I could have seen this show ages ago. That would be Ganja and Hess, right? Like, I've always been meaning to see that show, right? But then the show kind of reveals how it ends. I was like, God, you know what I mean? But how they explain it is like, oh, that's what it means. Because honestly, I would have watched that and be like, all right, that was a weird way to edit. But how they explain is like, oh, that's what it means. Okay, Shadow of the Cross. That's what it is. Right. I would never understood that ending at all. I just thought, oh, well, because the whole show itself looks very surreal and artsy. I love that shit, right? But I would have just treated it like, oh, it was just an artsy way to end the movie. But how they explain is like, oh, okay, that's what it means, right? Okay. That
is so true. They do break things down in ways that, you would probably just watch it and be like, oh, that just looks good aesthetically. But, oh, no, this actually means something, and there was a choice behind that shot like that. So not that it isn't, that isn't in general with films, but these things like that in these type of surreal movies, as you put it, you do tend to miss.
Right.
Yeah, you do, yeah. So in closing, as you could have told, though, as you could have realized, I should say, I absolutely love this show, though. This lived up to the hype, though, because I was excited for the moment I heard about this. I was just like, I want to see this, right? But I mean, there was no way it was going to hit any film festival here in Trinidad, right? But I was just waiting for it at least to come out on VOD, and well, it actually came out this month, right? So okay, but I was just thoroughly engaged from the word go. It is long. I mean, we're talking 3 hours and 12 minutes, right? And we're not saying that it flies by very quickly, though, but you do get a lot of information, but it doesn't like overpower you with information.
No, it doesn't.
But it just always kind of leaves you like, I want to learn more. I want to see this movie. I want to watch over this movie to understand, oh, this is what really was going on here. You know what I mean? Especially with the 5th chapter, with all those films from around the world, I just want to see these films. I want to kind of watch them, maybe laugh at them, like how badly, how badly, the effects are, right? But it's just the storytelling that I want to tap into mainly, right? The interviewees, just the choices, whether it's Robert Eggers or just other people involved, or even the director herself, right? Were on point, though. You really learned a lot from this. I know for some people might find it, a little intimidating. They're like, oh gosh, you give up this amount of information, this amount of time. Like, I don't know, it's like a lot. But no, the way how the story is, how the film flows, how it's sectioned off and whatnot, you could just, like you can literally watch a chapter a day if need be, right? And still feel like you just want to see more, right? And that's the beauty of it. It just kind of left me wanting to see more. Like you say, Ricardo, you want to see a 9-hour cut. Maybe there is one. I'm not sure what the behind the scenes stuff you get on the Blu-ray for this though, but I know you maybe get like an interview, maybe at least a few interviews that maybe was left the cut room floor, right, or whatever, right? But yeah, and in particular, I really love the fact that they brought in directors who made these films, right?
Yeah.
And them talking about, well, yeah, this is the myth. This is how true it is in our country, and this is how I used it to explore this topic or that topic and whatnot. So I really appreciate that as well too. So I mean, yeah, this is an excellent documentary though. This easily would have made it to my best of 2021. Yeah. But yeah, for me, I'm gonna give this a strong 4.5 out of 5, man. I would love. I don't know. I do see this as one I'm gonna be rewatching numerous times. In my lifetime. I do hope to get that box set, that All the Haunts Be Ours box set. I just want that in my life, right? Not just so I could have this movie, but I could see more films from other countries and learn and actually like seek out other films, similar to that as well too. If you're a film buff, you need to see this. You absolutely need to see this, right? If you're into film history or world history, you need to see this as well too. If you're into folklore and all that kind of stuff, right? Or anthropology, you need to see this as well, right? And I mean, not much more I could say. This is just a great documentary, man. I do definitely need to watch horror noir as well, right? But yeah, this really opens you up to the world, to the wide world, literally world, right, of folk horror, man. And it's a world that I want to explore more of, man. And maybe who knows, maybe one day, I don't know about you, Ricardo. Maybe we could actually like come up with a folk horror film of our own. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
something relevant in time, right? So we'll see. Summer, any last words and rating on this film here?
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you to you because this one would have slipped under my radar.
And
no,
you're a horror aficionado.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I know you had to see this. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I think as you were counting down all the reasons, people should want to see this, the type of people, and one of the things that I said, horror fans should definitely see this because I learned so much, and yet at the same time you're seeing while you're sitting there in your mind as they're talking and they're explaining the way these things coalesce. It's like, yes, this is why that La Llorona film works so much better than that one, and those sorts of things. I also learned what hauntology meant, so that's
right. Yes,
I was not familiar with, and I'm like, it was.
What's his name? Mark Fisher, I think.
Yes, yeah.
He's like a big in the left wing circles. So like, oh shit, nice. Yeah, the reference Mark Fisher, right.
So there's, as you said, it's so much. At no point in those 3 hours did I feel like, oh my God, how long have I been sitting here? It's just so immersive, and just everything coalesces from decade to decade so well that it definitely, you can sit there and just with a pad and paper and just write, I need to see this. I need to see this. Yeah. So for me, this was a 9 out of 10. I don't see.
Right. Nice.
Yeah, I definitely would recommend this to any, not like mainstream, like what I like to say, the casual horror fan, but actual horror fans should definitely check this out.
Right.
Yeah. Ricardo, last words to read it.
Yeah, quick correction. Jacques Derrida, not Mark Fisher. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah. I love this. I thought this was excellent. Much deeper and much more educated than I expected it to be. Really smart. I thought they would bring up this movie, It Follows, into the.
No, they didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally, I'm not the biggest fan of It Follows. Like, I understand why it's great.
Right.
It's a decent film, but I feel like I just need to watch it one more time for me to be like, this is why it should be regarded as one of the greatest of the 21st century.
Yeah. Anyway, I just kind of mad I didn't see this last year because it would definitely make my top 10. This was excellent. Really, really well done, well told, brilliant, and it's just overall just well made as a documentary. It's very deep, very educated, and this is one for the history books in terms of academia. I could see this being used for classrooms going forward. It's just that good. Totally recommended. Thing. In my defense, Mark Fisher did use the term in some of his material with respect to music, so I was kind of right, maybe. So that quite yeah. I just read the Wikipedia article just to see if I say the right thing.
Right.
Avoid being a dummy, people. So 9 out of 10. I absolutely loved this. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. Just so deep, and again, a whole bunch of a shit ton of movies I never seen before. It's like, oh, okay,
Right.
I have a list. I like a big list now. Like,
Yes.
I was never a horror fan per se, so I was really going into this expecting, all they go talk about is more than me, and I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as it was, because it came into my nerdy, pretentious circles of, oh, this is the reason why this happens, and this is the actual subtext of this, and this is the sociological blah blah blah, and the anthropological this is this.
True.
And it gave me more than enough of that for me to appreciate, and I really really liked it. 9 out of 10, loved it.
So before we move on, right? So with I do imagine myself, like I said, just seeking out as much as these films as possible. Not just the ones that will be in the all the Hornsby Hours box set, but other films that I mentioned in this film here, right? So you guys, right? Are you gonna seek these films out at some point in time?
Oh yeah.
I say it gave me a list. It's just like, all right, well, I don't watch this, and I don't watch this now. Like, all right, because a whole bunch of stuff, especially like the British stuff, that a lot of stuff I just don't know from British history, pre-industrial British history, going a little further with all of the Celtic and pagan stuff. I was like, all right, let me see what they're talking about and we see references here. All right, cool.
Right. And this is for you, Ricardo, right? I'll put you up on the spot now. As I said it, like maybe one day we could actually like come up with an idea, a folk horror idea for a script or whatnot, right? Do you actually like see yourself? I don't want to go as far as saying making a film, but at least coming up with a story that fits within that folk horror genre, but in Trinidad.
Okay, so I already wrote a script about these things. In fact, I have several. And I made one secretly. No one knows.
Oh.
Yeah. You will never see.
Man making secret films and things.
It locked away in a vault somewhere, right? It's just not finished, but I never took the time to finish it. But I'll probably study it whenever. But yeah. Yes, I have one really cool idea, and I have a perfect actress for it. Unfortunately, she does not live in Trinidad anymore, and I think she hates me. So whatever. But yeah, I have a couple of ideas for this. So yeah, whenever I'll just if push on the shove, I'll just send you a script and see if it could work. Because I don't really have like any direct intention of making it, or I have big plans to push this out or nothing like that. So push on whenever. I'll just send it whenever.
Yeah, but I really think the whole surreal route is the way we should go when it comes to making our own folk horror stuff, right? Because the modern stuff, it works kinda, but I think the reason why these films resonate with us in particular, because just how weird and surreal they look, right? I just love how this show just kind of captures the weirdness of it all. But it's weird. It's weird with a purpose, basically. Not just for the sake of it, right? But we talked enough about this show here. Y'all definitely need to see Woodlands, Dark and Days Bewitched, a history of folk horror. It is absolutely worth checking out.